Good evening, everyone. My name is Monifa Brathwaite. I am the Public Information Officer for the Virgin Islands Port Authority. I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight, taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us as we discuss proposed fee increases to the Virgin Islands Port Authority's aviation tariff. Tonight we'll have a presentation by our Executive Director, Mr. Carlton Dow. He will be discussing, He'll be discussing changes to our tariff. Two fees we're changing. The first is the parking rates at the Sierra King Airport, and the second is the aircraft passenger lift charged directly to the airlines. That will be increasing on both airports. After the presentation, Mr. Dow will allow you to ask questions and voice your opinions regarding these fee increases, and he also has staff here to assist him with those questions if need be. Before we begin, I'd like to just point out some key staff members that we have here. Of course, you know the Executive Director, Mr. Carlton Dow. He is joined by the Assistant Executive Director, Mr. Bill Rollins. He manages the St. Croix operation. We have our airport manager. Please raise your hand. Territorial Airport Manager, Mr. Jerome Sheridan. We have the Director of Financial Affairs, Mrs. Eva Penn. Seated at the back out is Mrs. Anis Hodge. She is our Deputy Executive Director here at St. Thomas and St. Croix, and the Chief Financial Officer, Mrs. Anna Penn, and we have Mrs. Naisha Wells. She works in the financial office on St. Thomas as well. On St. Croix, we have our legal counsel, Mrs. Catherine Hendry, Attorney Catherine Hendry, and I see we have a guest over there as well. And that is it for introductions. Mr. Dow, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you and good evening to all, and I'm glad that some folks could make it, and those viewing or listening, we're glad to have you as well. I want to thank Monifa for continuously trying to inform the public. I saw we had these notices in the papers of daily circulation and media and so forth, and social media. So this presentation of our proposed changes to bypass tariff so that we could come to the community and let all of us understand that we're doing it by statute. The law requires us before we change any rates or anything that we go ahead and do that. Okay, go to the next slide. All right. The Virgin Islands Port Authority is an autonomous, self-sustaining agency. The authority is managed by a 9-member governing board that sets the policy. The executive director, my job is to make sure that the day-to-day operations are carried out based on the policy the board sets. It was created by the Virgin Islands legislature in 1969. The mandate is to maintain and develop the airport and seaport of the U.S. Virgin Islands to accommodate current and future demand of its users. Our mission is primarily to facilitate the travel, commerce, and aid in fostering economic growth to our port. The stakeholders of the Port Authority include the entire community, our facility users, tenants, which is our people that work and operate out of the airport, our neighboring Caribbean islands, our federal regulatory agencies, and the global aviation market, as well as the marine industry. The funding for the U.S. port operations is primarily that of revenues that we get primarily from our rental of properties, users' fee that we collect from the port, the federal grants that are awarded, whether through U.S. Department of Transportation, the FAA, U.S. Coast Guard, etc. Passenger facility charge is approved by the FAA, and they are added to the airline tickets as people purchase tickets in and out. Sometimes we might get a legislative allotment for a special project. For example, we're doing a couple projects in St. John. They were through legislative appropriation. Bonds that we from time to time will float and use monies primarily on the marine side. The Port Authority, as we speak, have no real outstanding loans on the aviation side. Viper's aviation tariff. Viper's aviation tariff, the official document used by Viper that lists all the fees that we charge to users and tenants of its aviation facilities. We are required by law to conduct a hearing, inform the public regarding changes to its tariff based on Act 2375, Section 505A. You can find our tariff on the aviation section of Viper's website, which is www.viport.com. Viper's Airport Manager's Office, that's the number you have there, 340-774-5100, or in St. Croix, 340-778-1012. The new Cyrilli King parking rates. Viper's Board of Governors authorized the Executive Director to implement a new parking fee structure at the Cyrilli King Airport in St. Thomas. Current fees have been in effect since July 1 of 2006. For some 17 years, these rates remain the same, with a maximum daily rate of $10. The proposed new rates are between 33% to 71% lower than fees charged by other local public parking facilities. And to your right, you would see an example there, a couple of the local parking facilities in St. Thomas. And you could very well see, based on what we will be proposing, you would have one of these, you could look at it and see the difference in the fee schedule. The parking rates proposed is for the first 15 minutes from zero. Currently it is zero, and we expect it to remain zero for the first 15 minutes. Beyond 15 minutes, which is 16 minutes to 1 hour, the current rate is $2. We expect to move that fee to $4. 2 to 3 hours, 1 to 2 hours is $4 currently. We expect to move it to $6. And 2 to 3 hours is currently $6. We expect to move that to $8. 3 to 4 hours is $8 currently. We expect to move that to $12. 4 to 5 hours is $10. We expect to move that to $15. And 5 to 24 hours is $10 currently. That's the entire day. Is $20. The daily rate is currently $10. We expect to move that to $20. Our last ticket is currently $10. We expect to move that to $20. The monthly parking is currently $150. We expect to move that to $250. Tenant employee parking monthly rate is currently $50. We expect to move that to $100. And tenant employee daily rate is now $0. We expect to move that to $10. We also went through a small exercise for the public's benefit and page 8, that is to show you the comparison of airport parking rates, let's say in Puerto Rico. The 15 minutes to the first hour is $5.50, and then it goes on. For example, the last ticket is $27. 24-hour parking at the Puerto Rico airport is $18.50. And you'll have the handout. You could go through it. And we have it printed, and so folks could look at it. And the significant thing, though, is we go to the daily rate, the 24-hour, the last ticket, and these kind of. Okay. The comparison of airport parking, we did Miami because we tried to look at some of the locale that our people either go to visit, have family there, or what have you. And you could see what the daily rates in Miami. They have several garages, some closer, some further away, and that's what that slide 9 depicts. So per day, 20 minutes at Flamingo is $2 for 20 minutes. Then after that, it's per day $17. We did Hartsfield Jackson Airport in Atlanta because a lot of our folks live in that area, and that's places that we frequent. So the 2 hours at Jackson, the closest entrance, that's how they have it listed, is $3. The third hour to the 6th hour, $4. After 6 hours, it's $36 in Atlanta. Each additional day, if you go for a couple days, it's $36 per day. We did just a quick comparison too of JFK in New York, and that's what the rates that you're looking at. First half an hour is $4, and each additional is $4. In the entire 24-hour period at JFK is $29, and over 24 hours, each 12 hours after that is $14.50. The Cyril E. King Parking and Transportation Center, as we know it, that's just a picture of what we're constructing as we speak. It's currently under construction. The cost is about $29 million. The funding source, $20 million of that 29 came from the United States Economic Development Authority, administration by a grant, and $9 million is Port Authority money. I want to repeat that. $9 million of this project is, let's say, $30 million project. $9 million is that of the Virgin Islands Port Authority. Now, how we were able to do that, that's monies that we collect in various ways. We budget for that, and that's what we use in our own money to put $9 million into the structure that you're seeing. But at the same time, some of the monies that we utilize to put into the project, there's something called a facility charge, a car rental facility charge. And how that works is everyone that rents a car out of the King Airport, what a fee is? $2? $2.50? What it is, sir? Everybody that rents a car at the King Airport on their rental agreement, they pay, I think it's $2, if my memory serves me correctly. So if they rent a car for, let's say, 1 week, that person would remit to the Port Authority, basically through the car rental agency, $14. So it's $2 per day for a rental agreement. So that amounted to, I think, somewhere over about $2.3 million, and that money is used because in the agreement to establish that car rental facility charge, it says that we can use that money to enhance, improve anything that would benefit the car rental company. This is a direct cost of people rented from a car rental company. So of that, so from the time we instituted that fee, it's over $2 million we raised, and that money went right into the parking garage, and we continue to do that up to now. Sika Parking and Transportation Center, the tentative dates that we're thinking about opening, 50% of the facility would be by the middle of November. We're playing with that, but probably by the middle of November things happen when you're depending on shipments of material or goods to come in. But we're looking to go live with 50% of the parking garage by the middle of November. January 24th, we expect to start to utilize the first floor, which would be for car rental and taxis on the bottom level. We're looking at full completion on April of 2024. The car rentals will not, when we go live in November, the car rental nor the taxis will be able to utilize the bottom floor. The bottom level will remain out of service for a period of time. For a couple of reasons. One of the primary reasons is the bottom floor still have to, we still have to bring in supplies, materials, store things. That's going to be continuously a staging. And just by way of understanding, we give you a little graphic. The road that you're coming into the airport now will be changed slightly because the entrance for the public parking is going to be off of this main road that you're driving now. You're not going through the two gates that you go through right now. So that's why the starting point for the public parking is the second floor, the same street level, and as we come out, if there is, for example, if there are people with any challenges, disabilities, there are spaces that's assigned specifically right as you go up and whether you make a right turn, it'll be very close to the elevator bank that folks could utilize the elevator and go down to the bottom to go over to the terminal as they would see fit. So if you look out through the window, you would see that tower. That's basically the a staircase and the elevator bank. So those people with any disabilities, that's the section in which would be there to accommodate them right off the elevator bank. Let's go to the next slide. So the total parking garage and transportation center, the total parking spaces for the paid public use would be approximately 311. Done by some way of, if you look at it out in Red Hook, we have just slightly 160 some odd spaces in Red Hook and those 2 floors. So this is about 311 public parking spaces. There'll be 9 ADA spaces, and based on communication we have with the governing body, we'll monitor that. This is what the law requires us to do. But in the event, because we have a population that sometimes we see them going back and forth, whether to the VA or for medical treatment, and if we believe that while we monitor it, if we need to increase that amount of spaces, we possibly can do that as well. We did the same thing out in Red Hook. What was called for in Red Hook, we surpassed for people who have some sort of disability. We surpassed what the legal requirement was at Red Hook for the very same reason. There'll be 177 rental car spaces. There'll be 28 spaces for the taxis. The first floor, 123 covered rental car parking spaces. 54 is uncovered rental spaces. Right next to the garage, to the parking garage, there'll be an area still designated for parking, but it would not be under any cover. There'll be 18 covered taxi staging spaces and 10 uncovered taxi loading spaces. The second floor, 146 covered paid parking spaces for travelers, 8 ADA parking spaces. And the third floor will be 165 uncovered paid parking spaces for travelers and 1 paid parking space for ADA. And once again, like we said, if we believe that we need to upgrade or probably add a few more, we can. Shirley King parking lot operations. All airport employees and contracted airport workers may park in a lot adjacent to the parking and transportation center remote lot. In other words, if you're an airport employee or contractor, we don't expect those people to park in the parking garage. Right below this building, as you look out, you walk out, you'll see parking spaces there that the rental cars are now occupying. The rental cars will move down into the building and airport employees will be parked, or contractors. We have to be very lenient and lax these days. We have folks working airport and supported parking our employee space. Every day we see it. But the circumstances kind of, you just can't do much better. But that's where we are right now. It's not that they go by, I have to ask the police to release somebody because they park up in our spaces. But it's something that we would hope to correct quite a bit of, because there'll be an area that the employees of the airport, to include our employees that work at the airport, they should no longer be parking down in none of the spaces at the parking garage. Airport employees will be issued decals by the Viper parking lot supervisor. Airport employees will pay the daily rate if they choose to park in a parking transportation center. So in other words, if any employee of the airport, whether they're Viper employees or not, if anybody goes into that facility, it's because they're paying to park. Port Authority employees will not be allowed to park in a parking and transportation center, and I give you the caveat that If they choose to go in there, it's because they're actually going to pay. And we're talking about not if they're traveling and they accept and they plan to park in it, then they'll pay to park in it. Parking rules will be strictly enforced at the airport. Violators, as usual, will be booted and towed. Let me just say that again, because that's always seemed to be, everybody have a crisis. I was going away with my mother and something happened, she forget her bag, I had to park here. It's always something. I was coming to the airport late, I had to double park. We get it, trust me, we get it every day. And it's hard when the police doing their job for me to have to try to intervene and say, hey, give them a break. But we need to, be more understanding, and let's use this as a real change for what happens down there. And just, in all of our travel, we travel all over. And somewhere along the line, we have to come to a place where we're going to respect what the information is, we're going to respect what the rules of law might be, and we're going to respect the way the airport expects to operate. And we travel to Miami, you can't slow down a second. Somebody tell you keep it going. We travel these places, you could only, where they said drop off and pick up, you drop off, you pick up, you keep it going. But for some reason you want to, and it happened. You might have an elderly person you're traveling with, or what have you. When you drop them, then, and you're going to be there for a period of time, then you're going to have to go in the parking garage and wait. Waiting is not to be done down in front of the terminal. When you drop off somebody there, it's exactly for that. Drop off, or if you had to pick up someone, you pick them up. I hope that, at least if nothing else, we understand that as we transition into the parking garage, all our problems is not going to be eliminated, but quite a bit of them in terms of how down there is the congestion and so forth. We know we had to do better, and this is one of those steps towards trying to do better in terms of how the traffic flows. Now, I want to reference another section that we expect to raise a fee, and that's the aircraft passenger lift rental fee. Like many other airports across the world, Viper provides aircraft passenger lift units to assist travelers. Travelers who need to be disembarked embark on aircraft without the use of stairs. Viper owns 5 lifts, 3 in St. Thomas and 2 in St. Croix. The airlines rent the lifts from Viper. Private ground handler companies at our airports also rent their aircraft lift to airlines. Some airlines have purchased and maintained their own lifts. That photo gives you an idea of what these lifts look like. The Port Authority spent a considerable amount of money just trying to get these lifts so that we could try to accommodate folks. I remember early on, let's say, and I just using a reference on one American Airlines flight, you're lucky if you use the lift one day, or had to move 1 or 2 passengers. That was a stretch for the whole day, having to use the lift to move like 2 or 3 passengers. Today, one airline could require more than 4 or 5 lifts, one airline. And at that time, what we used to have is a hydraulic system that operated. You have to go back to the building after you use it and plug it in. And so all it takes is one airline not to remember, for some reason, not to plug it in. So by the time another airline comes to use it, and they could start a lift, and in the middle of the lift, it stopped working. And that's why one of the things we went to an actual mechanical lift, which is driven by a truck engine. And so, aside from that, we try to make this as humane as possible. I'm not talking from somebody that had not experienced this. I had to fly my mother out of here many times. And as she was going for medical care, one day the lift isn't working, it's one of the food truck. Is what elevate the food to put onto the plane. To me, these things are kind of inhumane. And it touches us in a special, because this is our mother, our brother, or sister, right in the small community. So we went ahead and we invested in a different type of lift that's used throughout the industry. When we talk about these lifts, though, the other question that people always come with, yeah, but when are we going to stop and have these jet bridges? But we hope to get it. Just since I have so many here tonight, I'll take 2 minutes to just talk about that aspect. But anyhow, those lifts are what you see there. Some airlines have their own, but at the airport we maintain 5 of them, 3 in St. Thomas, 2 in St. Croix. Most often when we have to repair these lifts, and that's why I always hope and to see some young people who get engaged in this mechanical stuff. Most times when we have to repair these lifts is somebody coming from off island to work on them, which is a costly proposition. So Vipers board had authorized myself and the staff to adjust the fees. Currently, the airline, I want to make it clear, this is the airline that pays us. So the airline requests the use of the lift. The fee currently is $75. We are proposing $175. We expect that we need to start really covering some of our maintenance costs. As I can tell you, when these things go down with just a basic service, we could do some basic service here, but a lot of this is hydraulic system. We fly people in here to repair and fix these things. And the parts are not cheap. A lot of them are specialty coming from some manufacturer who that's the part that they make. So sometimes we have challenges in getting the parts. But so the fact is we need to be able to recover some. This cannot recover the entire cost for the equipment nor the overall cost. Currently, just like I said to you earlier, that there are a couple other companies, they have the ground handlers, and sometimes people mistake the ground handlers what works for CGC, who take your baggage off the plane or operate the lifts. Oftentimes, those folks are not, I want to repeat, those folks are not employees of the Port Authority. The whole ground handling operation, taking your bag on, taking it off, we get the complaints, but they work for a private company that the airline contract with. So there's Worldwide at King Airport, and there's CGC, and in St. Croix you have both
Worldwide and Envoy.
And Envoy, yeah. So that's the 2 companies in St. Croix, Worldwide and Envoy. But in St. Thomas, there's CGC and Worldwide. GCG, sorry, and Worldwide. And that's the 2 companies and they too, operate lift. And anything can happen in this business. A couple of the airlines purchase their own lift because it's a complaint, that their passenger will make time and time again. And some of these airlines say, we have to wait, a flight could be delayed because of these lifts. But we're saying that it's currently $100, and I can tell you that the Port Authority fee is still, let me repeat, Port Authority fee is still less than the private operator at the airport. Once again, the Virgin Port Authority is a self-sustaining agency. Adjustments to Vipers tariff rates are required occasionally for construction, funding costs to improve and expand our facilities, operation, funding for costs to operate our ports, utilities, personnel, cleaning. So the Port Authority does not go to the legislature of the Virgin Islands every year to get some appropriation for the operation of the budget or anything else. Whatever we make, that's what we can spend. And again, like I outlined earlier, unless there is some special requirement or special appropriation. We expect to continue to try to modernize our ports to provide a pleasant departure and arrival experience. Unlike a lot of places, I tell folks we don't get in a car and drive from Atlanta down to Miami here. It's our seaport to airport. That's the only 2 games in town. So whatever we consume, whatever we do, comes through either our airport or comes through our seaports. So far, based on what I discussed relative to our new tariff that the board authorized, the staff, go ahead and execute. Is there any questions that anybody may want to ask or something I wasn't quite clear about?
We do have some people online, and I just want to acknowledge them and thank them for participating. We do have a question online. How do we get more information about the 58 car rental spaces that are covered? Or will that just be designated only for the car rental agencies at the airport? Meaning the external agencies, will they be allowed to park their cars there?
That's an excellent question because, again, there is so many new car rental companies in this territory. The Port Authority will not be able to accommodate all of that, except though, for the Port Authority, our governing body recently had authorized us to put out a request for proposal for a couple new companies to come onto the airport. And when we put out a request, we had quite a few people responded, and we did the vetting of those organizations. And in fact, the staff made a recommendation for 2 new companies that would come onto the airport. It's a matter of the area, the space, the volume, and these kind of things. We will not be able to accommodate every car rental organization out there now that wants to come on the airport. We put out a public offering, and a couple companies responded, and the Port Authority have selected 2 new companies, one being Centerline, I think they're currently out of St. Croix, and the other one being, what are they again? Premium car rental. And that's after our public offering went out. And so, and unless and until there's any other thing, but there are some of our properties that are currently being used in Bournefield now for staging, for car rental operations. We probably have another lot or 2 coming available. So if folks want to rent from us over and any part of our property across the way, they can in fact do that as well. But we will not be able to accommodate all the car rental that we have now in the territory. Every day we see a new one pop up. And the truth be told, we've been very lax with what's going on, because car rental companies also in our tariff, if you come on to our property to operate a business, which is a car rental company, when you leave it, you're supposed to be paying a fee for those passengers, just like the $2 fee that the other folks pay. But now it's a little difficult. They try to sneak in, they try to go by Lynbrook Beach, try to walk. I mean, we see and the game goes on. We know all of what happens, except that our police will be spending all day just chasing behind it. So we know all the games that goes on and the way they try to beat the system. But bear in mind, even people who don't, there are other lucrative car rental companies that is not on our airport, but they run most of the business from the airport anyhow. So we're saying that this is where you make your money. So this same place is where, and it's not you paying the fee. That was an argument. I mean, sometimes I get in all these fights and arguments, but sometimes we have to stand up when we know something just ain't right. Because the fact of the matter is, you cannot run your business from the airport and don't pay nothing. Drive in the airport, pick up the passengers, and just leave. But to expect that, the airport will be there for you, the service, something happen, will be there for you. It just ain't right. And the person that owns the company is not the person who's paying this $2. And so we have to come to a place where we have to recognize for certain progress and what we want, there is some cost to it. But who we should try most times when we can to pay that cost for you, just like when we travel to Miami. And we go to Miami, people leave there, go to Cleveland Clinic every day, Fort Lauderdale. And as they come up and you rent a vehicle, when you leave here, they tell you, man, we have a good deal for you. This week going to be $100 special. But by the time they give you the surcharge for $8 a day, then they give you the fuel surcharge, then they give you an environmental fee, and then a car rental, a tire replacement fee. What was $100 now? End up $200 and change. But we pay, we smile, we go to Miami, we have a good time, and we come back home and see what a good time we have. Except right here, most of us will live here in the territory. Most of us don't really rent car unless you come and shop again and ask me. So who is paying? When you go to Miami, is the visitor paying for their roads? So we must do likewise. And so in St. Croix, they talk about the economy, how rough it is and how rough it was back then. So at that point, we never instituted that car rental fee in St. Croix. So in St. Croix, that fee don't exist. But then you might want to ask, well, how they're able to now put $3 million or 2 points of million into building a parking garage. That's the same money is what we're using. And so we want people to recognize that. But if you do have a car rental business, it's not that you can't operate utilizing the airport. You do it now anyhow. But we do not have any space to really allow. If the time comes in terms of our expansion, then we'll be more than glad to probably bring on a couple. It's not every car rental company that in, let's say in Miami, that's why you see outside when you leave Miami proper, outside the fence, outside the gate, there's different car rentals all over the place because none of them would be able to accommodate every car rental company there is. Senator Simmons?
Good evening. I have a prepared statement I'd like to read.
Sure.
Good evening. I am Ruby Simmons Anderson. I'm the wife of and the care provider to Rubio A. Anderson, who has been wheelchair dependent since suffering a stroke in 2010. For several years following his stroke, it was necessary for us to travel between St. Thomas and Atlanta, Georgia. Whenever we boarded or deplaned in Atlanta, we were able to do so via a jetway that allowed for Rubio to be wheeled to or from his seat. However, boarding or deplaning in St. Thomas was a completely different story. We were brought onto and off the plane by a lift, which was not always readily available. There were times when we had to wait quite a while for the lift, and once when there was no lift available, we were boarded on the device that was used to bring the prepared meals on board the plane, as the director said. In other words, we were brought on board in the food cart. We dealt with that indignity without complaint. However, in November of 2013, the situation became intolerable. We were traveling to Virginia where Rubio was scheduled to have back surgery. As we waited our turn to board, we were told that there was no lift available and we would have to reschedule our flight. I advised the agent that Rubio had an appointment the next day, which we could not afford to miss because it was vital to the preparation for his upcoming surgery. I should note that since 2010, we had always traveled first class as it was too problematic for Rubio to sit in coach. So we weren't paying 2 cents for our flight. As we waited, I tried to make contact with officials at Port Authority. I tried to speak with someone in tourism. I made several efforts to get the situation resolved. In the meantime, the airline boarded all the other passengers. There was one agent who was extremely helpful. In fact, she practically stopped them from leaving without us. At one point, it was suggested that the firefighters from the Bournefield Fire Station could lift Rubio up the steps and into the plane. However, I saw that as too dangerous a proposition because he could fall or be injured in some other way. Eventually, a lift was found and we finally boarded the flight, the last passengers to get on board. The surgery was successful and we returned to St. Thomas sometime after Thanksgiving. I had already decided to write a letter to the Airport Authority regarding the unfortunate experience we had had earlier that month. However, during our return flight, I read an article in the newspaper about United Airlines being fined for not providing proper access to disabled passengers on their planes, and decided to include that article in my letter to Port Authority. I had delivered letters addressed to the then chairman of the board, the late Mr. Robert O'Connor, and the executive director of the Port Authority, Mr. Carlton Dow, with copies to all members of the board expressing my concerns and inquiring about the Port Authority providing more reliable access to planes for passengers with disabilities. The only board member who contacted me upon receipt of the letter was Dr. Yvonne Gray. Several months later, I had a conversation with Director Dow regarding the matter, but to date, nothing has changed. It has been 10 years since I raised the issue with the Port Authority, and it would seem to me that by now there should have been some kind of ramp installed if it wasn't possible to construct a jetway to get passengers on and off the planes. Recently, I saw a picture of a portable ramp attached to a plane in one of our airports. that is sometimes used to provide access. And I got excited thinking that we were making some progress. But to my disappointment, the last time I deplaned in June, it was by stairs. The time has come for the VI Port Authority to become ADA compliant and provide proper access to planes for its disabled passengers. Raising the fees for the use of the lifts does not address the indignity of having to be boarded via a lift. And I looked at the pictures you have of the little box. You go, you know, it's one thing to say you're helping people get in the plane, but there is still disabled people who want to be treated with a certain amount of dignity, and having to go up in that lift doesn't do that. So raising the fees doesn't address the indignity of having to be boarded by a lift or a food cart. All this is going to do is increase the cost for the passengers. I see you're going to raise the fees for the airlines to $175. It's $100 you're raising it. That fee is going to be eventually passed on to travelers. And so all it's going to do is raise the fee, but we're going to still have to hope that there is a lift available, make sure a lift is working, and have to be boarded on a lift. I want to know, and Director Dow hopefully will address, when do you all intend to get to the point where you can get off the plane and the jet plane comes up to the building and you can just be wheeled out? Because, like I said, you know, it's been 10 years since I addressed this, but we've been dealing with this issue for the last 30 years. And really prior to my husband's stroke, I dealt with lifts on the airport, helping my father get into the plane. So it's something I'm very, very familiar with. But we have to come to a point where, you know, we don't use the lift because it's not the best or the safest way necessarily to board people. And, you know, I went back and I looked for the article about United Airlines, and there were two stories in the newspaper in 2016 about United Airlines being fined $2.75 million for disability complaints because it was a situation where a passenger with muscular dystrophy had to crawl off the plane because he didn't get the assistance he needed. And I hope we never have anybody have to do that here. But I'm afraid we're going to wait until somebody, you know, a lift isn't working, somebody tries to come down the steps or walk the steps, somebody falls, gets injured, they sue the government, sue Port Authority, and then we're going to have to rush and try to do something. So I'm hoping that with all the construction that's being done, that there is some consideration being given to making the accommodation that would make a lift unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, Teacher, Senator. Good. Thanks.
You're going to find you'll find another idea.
I remember. Trust me, I remember clearly. But there is no words that I would be able to say to you to express my sincere feeling as to the indignity that I see out there, and that's why I tell you I lived it. I wasn't even here. I lived it, taking my mother back and forth. So I feel it, I live it. I saw the equipment stop at times in the middle because it was a battery alone operated thing we have to plug in. But the Port Authority, we're not going to get that bridge tomorrow. And what we could have done is what we believe to be the next best thing, which was from a cost-effective standpoint, we spent a couple $100,000 well. Those lifts that we have today are relatively brand new. Brand new. They're not something that were here for ever and ever. Those are brand new equipment. Now, and we have 3 of them, anytime stuff could break down. But we would hope that we don't see, I have not received a complaint where someone was not able in any recent time to get on a flight because of a lift not working. A matter of fact, like I said, one of the major airlines, they too went ahead and purchased their own. But what I want to say to you though is, it's not tomorrow, it's not overnight. But we're in the middle, we made it public to the whole world that we are engaging in a public-private partnership, we're exploring it. I think we are well on our way, we've had a lot of interaction. We expect to modernize these airports. A big part of the modernization or a first step in whatever we're going to do must come with jet bridges. Everybody who have participated in our forum, who have answered our request for qualification. That's one of the questions they have to answer. We will not accept any modernization without actual jet bridges being built. They are not cheap, and that's why we're doing this public-private partnership. I think I began by saying the money that the Port Authority operates by and with comes from fees we charge. We don't get no appropriation to do anything basically. And moreover, we get some grants at 8 million or 10 million from the FAA. Those are not monies for any construction. What they gave us money for, according to them, is the safety wing, the airfield. So you see work going on in the airfield, millions of dollars of work, time and time again, digging up. Some of that asphalt over there was over 30 odd years old. Some of the concrete over there forever. So you would see that kind of work going on, but those are money that the FAA gives to us. Another important thing every time I get to speak publicly, because people are online, we make these contrasts and comparisons sometimes with other Caribbean islands. I went to St. Martin, I saw what's happening down there. Nice jet bridges, everything nice and so forth. Escalators and all of this. But when you leave in St. Martin, the last time I went to leave St. Martin, I had to pay $35 to leave. It's more today. St. Martin gets about over 1 million passengers. So let's say 1 million passengers. At 1 million passengers charging $35, they could finance, go to a lending institution and get $200 million and build lift, build jet bridge, do whatever they want. But we in the Virgin Islands, we're not a big place, and so that fee, that $450 that every time you buy a ticket goes on to, that we get, that's set by the United States Congress. That fee has been in effect now for more than 25 years. And because of the politics, they can't get it moved. Every time but remember these states have hundreds, they have millions of people going to the airport. So we, small airport, could kind of suffer because we can't raise no fee. We can't go and say, well, we're going to put down $10 on a ticket at the airport. We can't. So we rely on some of the grants that we get. But one of the things I'm certain about, I know we're going to get there. I know we're going to get there. And it's not going to be tomorrow, but this process that we're going through, we are probably by the end of this year, by January, we expect to have selected whoever that company or companies are that's going to start the construction. One of the things we've made clear, that is not awarding a contract and then nothing happens. We are awarding a contract and we have these timelines that execution has to happen. So I hear the plea, and I'm glad that you took the time out, because you're not speaking to us here alone, you're speaking to the entire world. So sometimes when we do things, we oftentimes find ourselves like, how are we going to pay for what we do? And the users of the facilities, sometimes we have to try to make sure it's level enough that the board knows us files squarely in there. That's why this car rental thing. I took blows with people in the car rental industry, and I have had a while because as a senator, at the time I did it for education. Every car that you rent today, you're paying $3 per day on a rental vehicle. I looked at that fee. It's millions of dollars this government collect from that fee today. And sometimes we have to look at how do we raise the money to do the things we want. But what we can say is that we see light. We see light because these things, the interest, we have 4 major companies now, with each of them having the wherewithal to do what we want. And at some point, the staff and the board will select who we believe is best that we're going to do this project with. And we make it abundantly clear that it's not no one, it's both airports. Whoever coming, got to be prepared to do both airports. The car rental center, that's been a while in coming, but we there know, all of us know the complexities that going on to the airport, trying to drop off somebody, trying to pick up two jets on the ground at the same time. It's like Juve man, you can't get in, you can't get out. And so we definitely have to upgrade our facility. But as we speak today, I know we have some brand new lift at both airports that are all functioning. Truth be told, American Airlines went out and got their own, because what they were finding is that, and like I began earlier, those we had a couple live down there, and sometimes maybe for the day they might be required to be used one time. That was then, not today. For all kind of reasons, those lifts are used all the time. Just about every flight, there is some operation. It don't have to do with anybody, young, old, or whoever. Anybody at any given time could have something that goes wrong with them that we have to use that lift for. And all of us, we can't, go about our business and be complacent about it, and we're not. That's one of the big reasons that the modernization has to happen, but one of the things has to be a part of that is being able to get our people on and off these aircraft in a decent and professional and as a safe as possible manner. What if I is there anything else?
We do have a question on St. Croix.
Go ahead. Let's speak.
Sorry?
Let's speak.
You can go ahead and speak.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Director, I want to echo the same sentiment as Senator Simmons. And I want to ask something more specific, because you've been very general in terms of stating when those jet bridges are going to be installed. It's been 10 years, I think, since the Senator said she sent a letter, and it's been over 10 years since we've been advocating for those same types of jet bridges. So if you could be a little bit more specific, or you could say, well, during the planning phases, we anticipate in the next 5 or 10 years, and it's at a cost of so much, so that at least we can have an idea as to when to expect some movement on something that is so critical. Not just for the people with disabilities in the territory, but as a tourist market, you're eliminating a whole bunch of people from visiting the territory.
Thank you. Put your name on the record. We have a stenographer here. We have to do it.
Angus Racco, Executive Director, Disability Rights Center.
Thanks. Okay, let me try to be more succinct and as direct as I can. Tonight, and I always tell people, you know, where you might want to hear from Carlton Down. I try to tell you the truth. I'll be frank, and I'm not going to tell you I'm going to do something that I know that very well you'll walk out there feeling good, but it ain't going to happen. So what I'm saying, as it relates to the jet bridges, by January, and that's public information now, we expect to select, if all goes well, I work for a 9-member governing board, so it's not me alone in this, but we expect to bring to our board whoever we expect to partner with to modernize the airport. One of the first part of business, modernize both airports. One of the first part of business is to make sure that jet bridges are built. There are some timelines that we have to walk through whoever we select. Tonight I cannot tell you what that timeline is. But what I can tell you, if you know me a little bit, I don't have a lot of patience for stuff. And so I'm not going to tell you it's going to be 1 year, 2 years. I'm telling you we will start that whatever project. I believe within that you talk about 5 years. I don't expect that 5 years we wouldn't be under serious construction and have some part of our facility functioning. It wouldn't be the whole thing because again, unlike St. Croix, one of the things we don't have overall is space and room to operate. So all of what construction is going to go on, these facilities are still going to be operational. We don't have the room when you go to Atlanta, Miami, when they shut down an entire section and we build a whole new section. We don't have that kind of space. So I'm telling you that we expect that by January we will select somebody, and we've been very public. This process, are we talking about modernizing the airport? I don't know of anything that we have done around here so large that we have not kept it quiet, no secrets. We went to every island and 2 in St. Croix because we went to Frederiksted as well to make sure that we speak to the people, speak to the public as to what we're doing and where we are. So the negotiations will start in earnest in terms of real timetable. We have some documents where we already put out to the public. I think late summer we want to have what we call some kind of financial closing where we select whoever and all this kind of stuff. And everybody that we're talking to, they definitely have to, it's not a pie in the sky anything. These are reputable people who would have to show us, not tell us about it, but show us the kind of financial ability to do exactly what we say we're going to do. Our staff, our engineer, our consultants, as we speak today, matter of fact, I think next week they'll be in New York meeting with folks. This has been a process that we've been working on for quite some time now. So I cannot give you a date. What I can tell you, by January, we would have selected that company that we expect to go in bed with. Anything else? Do you have anything else on that?
No, no other questions on mine, but just for the record, the question about the car rental was from Mrs. D. Robinson. D.E. Robinson.
Yes.
Oh, we do have a question on St. Croix. Another question.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Julia Tolkata, employed here, ground handler for American Airlines. In terms of the passenger list rental, is that $175 per passenger? Because we don't carry like 10, 12 passengers on every flight, going for medical assistance and so forth. So could you clarify that for me?
Yeah, it's per passenger. The lift is per passenger.
Per passenger. And how soon are the business going to be back?
Well, again, we're doing what we are legally mandated to do this. We will give some proper notice, meaning that although we have this meeting tonight, we're not going to tell you tomorrow that's when it's going to go into effect. So we'll give you probably at least maybe at least a 30-day notice you'll receive before this. The reason we flip the script now to the parking garage. The reason we come in now is we have to prepare signage. There's a lot of stuff we have to prepare for the parking garage. So we know that that's sometime in November. So we come into the public that day. I can't give you a November 2nd, 3rd, 4th, but we know it should be the middle of November. And just like to Mr. Drago's concern, right? We had a timetable. We're moving very well. Anybody lived in St. Thomas could see how we were moving with this parking garage. It was really moving rapidly, the construction, the pouring. There are things that happen beyond our control. So although we're saying this, things happen all the time. There came the earthquakes in Turkey. Earthquakes happened in Turkey, and you say, what I have to do with building the parking garage in St. Thomas? Well, one of the byproduct that they were using to put in the concrete, something called slag or whatever it is. But anyhow, it's a base that they put in the concrete. So it's not like you're paving. When you're doing these things, just like if you're doing paving on the runway, it's not the same mixture that you use for even the streets. The asphalt ain't the same mixture that you're using out on the runway. The concrete that is poured for the parking garage is not the same concrete you pour when you're building your house. So that product primarily was coming out of Turkey. So when the earthquakes happen now, instead of they exporting that product to U.S. manufacturers and then selling it and distributing it even to the Virgin Islands, that ceased because they were keeping they wanted a product for themselves. So world events changes these things as well. So I'm very, we would hate anything happen. But in 2008, nobody knew the whole financial system was going to crash so that, and look at interest rates. Developers are going to look at these rates as well and determine whether or not what the rate of return. So things happen over the world, events can change things. But we are steadfast, and I feel strongly with a group of people that we're working with, our staff, the consultants. I know everybody focus is really modernizing these airports. Anybody else have?
Any other questions? So, the program, for 1 second, let me get you the so you can compare it.
Right, the portable ramps that are used in some places, and I think there was one on Sequoia, some place, there was a news article back like in May or something. Is that a possibility in the meantime, or to supplement the lifts, using those portable ramps to get people on and out of the place? You know the ramps I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, I think it's Delta, or one of them, Delta brought in one. Delta brought in one. It's something we could look at, but that too come with some other liability issues as well. And I could tell you that in St. Croix, they had a nice long one and so forth that they used to use there as well. But those things come with other challenges in terms of getting people on and off as well, because wherever you have those situations where you're depending on the movement of these winding and long staircases. But we look closer, but just understand them. And we can't put $1 on one side of my mouth. I'm telling you, we can't put $1 value on that. But then on the other side, when we look at these things and they cost a few hundred to $1,000, and then we come to the public and say, hey, we're going to get this ramp, but hey, what are you going to have to pay? You know. But we look seriously at it. Jeremy wanted to say something.
No, this is right with those airlines has
Your name on the record, we have a stenographer.
Good evening, everyone. Territory Airport Manager Jerome Sheridan. Said that you're right. Delta Airlines has brought in a passenger accessibility lift that's manual that they can hook up to a tug and bring up to the aircraft. And as the executive director was saying, that does come with its own challenges because efficiency of getting people on and off the aircraft, moving it around, becomes a little bit of a challenge for the airlines. Now, we do have 2 ground handle operators that operate those lifts on behalf of the airlines. Would a Delta Airlines allow American or United to do that? That would be at the sole discretion of the airlines. I mean, at some point, the airlines do know that they all have to play in the end game and sandbox. Customer service matters. Whether you have a Delta library, whether you have United, whether you have American. And ultimately, it's the Virgin Islands that have to be at the Sidney King Airport and the Henry Wilson Airport. So nobody wants to put out a bad product here. So, I mean, do we have access to go and sell Delta Airlines or GCG or Worldwide to do something with their lips? No, we don't. We do engage with them to try to see when we have challenges to make sure that we try to avoid those situations that we've done.
One further question. I know the lifts are being used by the major airlines. What about the airlines that travel between St. Thomas and St. Croix? Because I know there used to be a little cage that you transfer and to get people into see what it is. Is there anything we haven't been able to use the airport to St. Croix? Is there anything that's available for passengers, disabled passengers trying to go to St. Croix?
Yeah, Jerome, you could speak to that, but try to speak louder. You can slow.
Okay. Jerome Sheridan, Territory Airport Manager again. Yes, sir. The Silver Airways Seaboard does have a little wind-up lift that they use. However, I know that the Cape Air has a program that if there's an accessibility issue, that they will allow a person to travel with that person on the aircraft and whatever means they need to get them on the aircraft. Now, do we have something personally from the Port Authority side that deals with getting the travelers on the aircraft? No, we don't. It relies solely on the airline. And per the actual DOT regulations, it's on the airlines, but we as Port Authority recognize that we have to give some type of accessibility to the passengers. This is why how we got with the passenger list in the first place.
Well, we have had a fight with a couple of the small ones. Long story short, in telling them, look, it's the airline responsibility to get the passengers on and off, and so that's how it's a challenge every day. Sometimes the talk Silver Airlines do have a sand crank thing that they use, but none of these things are heartwarming to us for what we're trying to sell. Monica, you have anything else? That's an employee?
I think we're good.
We are it. Mr. Fleming, you good? Good to see you. But let me just quickly make a couple points just clear and then we move on. We want to thank everybody. I mean, Senator Simmons and Aldo, you know, my heart goes out, and I really respect the fact that you came on record in this public setting and put on the record. Because sometimes even the airline, they're listening, they have the folks listening, and that's a good thing with this media. And it helps all of us sometimes to really look deep, and sometimes who feels it, know they're living it, they're seeing it, you're feeling it, and people shouldn't be limited by where they go or don't go because of these factors. We recognize that, but we also want to make sure that when we come to the public and we say to them, this is why we do this, or whatever the case may be, with the parking garage and these kind of things, that people could understand these things are not free. And somehow we tend to not, be frank and blunt with our public sometimes, to let them know these things are not free and how they are paid for. Hopefully, in the instance of the parking garage, we hope that we would be able to utilize that mechanism in terms of how the car rentals work. You know, we rent car all the time all over. And when I worked with the Senate and doing that legislation, I brought some information from Tempe, Arizona. Sun Devil Stadium, where I play all the football in Arizona. They built a $300 million stadium by imposing $1.50 per day on every car rental. That's where the first idea came to me, to deal with the board of education, and now we're doing it with this parking garage. And so as we modernize, we'll continue to come to the public. I know I think I have a couple of series of public meetings coming up. Monday?
Yeah,
Monday and Thursday?
On Monday on 107.9, The Vibe, and on Thursday on WSTA.
And then you'll tell me what days we'll go to St. Croix. But the fact is, we continue to do that. One of the things we don't have a military, we've been so open in terms of this, especially on that development front, because we want the public, we really want buy-in from the public and understanding that at the end of the day, I tell them in Florida, and I use Florida because we go there, we know it really good. People might think it's not the orange and the grapefruit that Florida have that move the economy. What drives the economy? And somehow we keep thinking that we must run away from this tourism base, or what we call tourism, and making people welcome in a place. Florida makes their money, most of their money from traveling, from tourism. That's the product in Florida and a lot of other states. But primarily that, so in the Virginia, we need to better treat ourselves better, and if by way of treating ourselves and making these things better for our own self first, then it'll become better for the traveling public as well. And all of us on flights coming home and sitting next to somebody and hearing the whispers, the comments they're making about the place. Some good, some not so good, and especially when they leave it. We at the airport get it. When these folks leaving through here, if they didn't have a good time, and the challenge they might have from the taxi drivers to the airport, the facilities, the food, we hear it. Anyhow, I trust that all of us will have a good night, and I thank you very much for listening. I thank those of you who came and took the time out. It really meant a lot to us, because we're not in this by ourselves. So thank you and good night, and thank you, staff. I expect to see you 8 in the morning. Have a good night.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.